Nelson with Cascade Media Group and What's Up Kansas City. And today we have one of our educators as our guest. Who do we have here?
I'm Rodney Smith, and I am the Vice President for Access and Engagement at William Jewell College.
Hey, Rodney, I'm interrupting you. Don't be, you got a doctor behind your name.
Okay. Well, you know, my name is Rodney Smith, man. My mama
I love
named
you.
My
I
title.
love you. Well, a lot of our people, man, that doctor, my doctor, I'm like, you didn't come in the world with that.
No, that my mama named me Rodney. That's a title that I earned, but that's the term. I can't make somebody call me doctor. You know what I mean? If you want to call me doctor, that's what you call me, but that's not who I am. You know what I mean?
Love it, Rodney.
Yeah.
Hey, run it down from the time you come out of kindergarten to how you have risen to the heights that you are. I want you to comment on some of the mentors, give them their propers that influenced your life. Let them know how much you appreciate. Run it down.
Well, I'm gonna try to say that without crying, man. But I thank you for even thinking about them, man, because I often say that I'm an educator largely because I had all these influences of Black educators in my life. I think I'm the last generation of, starting in the second grade, man. All of my educators were Black. Starting in the second grade, Carlos. All of my educators.
You were lucky.
I was lucky. I was blessed. In fact, I wrote a book a few years ago called "Are We Really Crabs in a Barrel?" And I was challenging us into thinking that sometimes when you hear in the African American community, we say that we're just crabs in a barrel trying to pull each other down. I've never experienced that, because all of the people that were in the barrel with me, if there was a barrel, they were trying to push me up and out. So, you know, we've mischaracterized ourselves as well as the people who get compared to the crabs. I mean, we mischaracterize crabs and the people who get compared to crabs, because all those educators that you're talking about started with my second grade teacher, Miss Sumter, who I'm still in contact with to this day. They were not trying to pull me down. They were trying to pull me, they were lifting me up and out, you know. My third grade teacher, Miss Atkins, my fourth grade teacher, Miss Washington, who was a neighbor.
Well, you know their names. You're whooping them names right off.
Yeah, Miss Bill, my fifth grade teacher. You know, my sixth grade teacher, Mr. Knox, was my dad's best friend. Also, my fraternity brother. Largely, the reason why I pledge Omega Psi Phi is because of, I call him Uncle Herb. You know, my seventh grade teacher, Mr. Williams. My eighth grade teacher, Mr. Besselou, another neighbor and good friend of mine. You know what I mean? My ninth grade teacher, Mr. Shubrick, a fraternity brother. You know, my wood shop coach, Mr. Nelson. They all Black. These are all Black people I'm talking about. You know, and then ultimately my football coach and track coach, a guy named Tommy L. Smith, who it was a living legend in my hometown. He's passed on now, but you know, he coached my father 30 years before he coached me, and I was the last quarterback that he coached in my high school. So I felt like I got all of the wisdom that he ever had because I was the last guy that he had to dump all his wisdom into.
Tell me this, from an educational standpoint, how important do you think it was in your mindset being around all of those Black males that had something to offer versus how most of our kids come up in the public school system?
Yeah.
The program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.
You know, I often say you will be what you see. And what you see is my educators, the educators who inform me. In fact, the reason I wear a bow tie most days, the reason why I'm always in a suit is because of a guy named Dr. Glenn Halsey, who was my choir director in college. He used to always be in a suit. Another mentor of mine who was director of admissions at Fisk University, when I was working at Morris Brown in the admissions office, there's a guy named Dr. Harrison DeShields. He used to say a man's appearance should be as impeccable as his character. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm always in a suit. I
thought you had read John T. Malloy, Dress for Success or something.
No, I'm not necessarily I'm matching my appearance with my character. I like to believe that my character is good as I look. You know what I mean?
All right.
So again, I am a product of who I saw when I was in my formative years.
All right, let's keep it moving on this note that talk about some of the issues that are affecting our overall Black community and extend it to the overall community. I'd like for you to tell me what are some of the issues that are dear to your heart right now, or that you think that need to be put on the front burner?
Yeah, I think, with the thing that I've studied the most, Carlos, as an academician, as a scholar, you talk about me having a doctorate degree. Well, most of my studies, my studies was the sociology of education. And naturally, when you talk about the sociology of education and how society and education are one and the same, naturally, this conversation about race and racism comes up. Because you often wonder, why African American students or students of color having, different outcomes and academic outcomes than white students. And we talk about the achievement gap often. And so that gap is between, academic outcomes for Black students in relation to white students, in relation to Asian students, or Latinx students in relation to white students. There's a gap. And so this race thing, man, permeates all of our systems. And on the healthcare industry, we call it health disparities. Or in the criminal justice system, we call it disproportionate minority contact. I say that we're trying to measure racism in all these industries and we call it different things. It's just trying to figure out how race is showing up in these industries. So race is a major ism, one of the isms that we are confronted with in our society, man. And so we have to really get our minds around this idea of racism. And I don't want people to misunderstand when I say racism. I'm not necessarily talking about individual acts of hate. And I'm not talking about intentionality, because racism doesn't have to be intentional for it to work.
Can I cut you off just for a second? People say, Nelson, you cut people off. You damn right. How do you feel? See, when I look at racism, I look at European whitewashing history.
Absolutely.
And as you, and because when you differentiate it, a lot of people be thinking, or have the, oh, he called me an N-word, or they're racist, or this and that. But I think knowledge is key. And
yes.
When the distortion of knowledge, I'll let you go on from there. I just wanted to make that point.
No, you're absolutely correct, man. Because what people, when those terms are levied against us, the N-word and all those kinds of things, and then we will turn around and say that person is a racist, and then which is true, it's an extreme form of racism. I would describe as hate mongering.
All right.
Those people are hate mongers. And then when the other ones who we see them operating in and benefiting from systemic and structural racism, and we levy that term against them, they was like, oh, I'm not a racist. What they mean is I'm not a hate monger, right? But the truth of the matter is you are a racist because we all been socialized in a racialized society. Because, okay, I'll give you an example. I can refer you to this study that happened between two scholars. One was at MIT and another was at the University of Chicago, and they were trying to figure out if racism showed up in resumes. You probably heard of the study where they created these generic resumes. They sent them out to 1,300 would-be employers, equal opportunity employer organizations, by the way. But when they sent the resumes out, they had a female resume and a male resume. On the female resume, they put two different names. They put the name Emily and the name Lakeisha. And on the male resume, they put the name Gregory and the name Jamal. And they sent them out to 1,300 would-be employers. There was a 50% callback rate higher than another two names. There were two names that got a 50% callback rate higher than other two names. Emily and Lakeisha, Gregory and Jamal. So you tell me, Carlos, what two names got a callback rate higher than the other two names?
Come on, you know who Emily and other boy.
And Gregory, exactly, right? So how do you know that, and you've never had, and you
well, that's what I'm getting ready to go into.
Exactly.
So about 5 months ago, a study was returned, a 2-year study was returned to Kansas City on how Kansas City operates in general, park systems and everything. And I think they spent $500,000 on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because we are news, Black news, some of the staff sent it to me. I get a lot of things from different staffers in the mayor's office and that they think that need to be discussed. And what you just asked me, what did I think? They spent all of that money to come up with that the health in certain zip codes, all the Black zip codes, the real estate, the schooling, everything was bad. And you spent $500,000 for somebody to tell you that? That's the point I'm making. You just asked me, which one, if you would ask any Black person.
That's right.
They don't have to have no education.
They know it.
They would say Emily.
That's right. And Gregory. That's right.
All right. So
you're right.
It's all a game. It's all a game to me, and it all stems, as I said to you earlier off camera, that the majority community owns all the communications on the planet, really, since communications have come into existence. And so anything that you really think that you believe you me, you have been controlled to think that way because everything around us has been produced by someone that has think tanks that look what's going on for the next 100 years on so many different levels.
Yeah.
That you're being manipulated, and the beautiful thing about it, you don't even know that you're being manipulated.
Yeah. So I as a good brother, you might remember him or you might be familiar with him. His name is Tom Burrell, and he wrote this book a few years ago called Brainwashed. And Tom Burrell used to be the owner of Burrell Communications. I think he was the African-American marketing company that took McDonald's to where it is today, that took Coca-Cola to where it is today. But he describes what you described. He describes it as a public relations campaign. A public relations campaign, especially if you're talking about Black people, in relation to Black people, to get us to believe certain things about ourselves. Talking about the fact that, we buy more cleaning products than any other demographic group because we're trying to live down the notion that we've historically been dirty people, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he put it in the book. He put a bunch of stats together that that we engage in because we're trying to prove to ourselves and to others that we're not what society has said about us. And so, but again, to your point, that there's been a public relations campaign, a whitewashing of history, a whitewashing of our society, that we've all been socialized to believe certain things about certain people and about ourselves. And then we throw around this term white supremacy and to describe it. But I need people to understand what I mean when I say white supremacy, and what I think other sociologists and social scientists would describe as white supremacy is an idea. It promotes the idea that whiteness is the ideal of humanity.
But I wonder how, this is where I get really confused.
Okay.
When these people are really intelligent.
Yes.
And the intelligence says that man walked out of Africa. And I'm saying at the end of the day, even following that stream to the knowledge, all the knowledge came through Black people.
Right.
And people of color, even the Arabs, turning the Greek and the Latin into forms that have stood the test of time are the great minds, and most of them were people of color. So how this notion of white, when the first man was a man of color? I don't get it.
Well, you know, Carlos, but that's not common knowledge. What you just ripped off, what you just recited about the origination of knowledge, you know, this African epistemology, if you will, the nature of knowledge, where knowledge comes from. That's not common knowledge. That's not common knowledge, because we live in a society that indeed has whitewashed.
But now going to my other point of, and people act like it's self-serving when I say Cascade Media. We've been around since 2012, delivering important knowledge to our community so that you know things like that, and it has been rebuffed from my perspective.
Right. Well, I mean, again, sometimes when you make an effort and you make an outward effort to show that you love yourself, people interpret that as you hating against others because you love yourself. I always tell people, simply because I love me and I love Black people doesn't mean that I hate others or I hate white people.
Exactamundo. That's what I have with some of my white brethren. I'm like, because I care for my community, don't mean I don't like your community. I'm like 2 generations or 3 generations from my Irish ancestors and this and that. You know, let's get real.
Yeah. No, you're right, man. You know, simply because I love me doesn't mean that I hate you. You know, and I think that we have to do away with this binary thinking like that. It has to be good or bad. Why can't it be a third choice? Why can't it be that?
Tell me this. Again, cutting you off because we on a time. I'm watching the clock, which you told me you get the time. Where do you see our young people, like, let's say from senior in high school to college grad, and what do you see they thinking? Because right now we're interviewing our Wave of the Future leaders, and they're talking frank, and I don't think the leadership that we have is up to the task. And in the interview yesterday that I did with my niece, Amari Hill, when I asked her about the congressman, she's been on the Hill and she worked in a lot of she did internships in a lot of prestigious places. I said, do those people even know how to do basically social media or campaign? All staffers is handling that, young people.
Of course.
Right, and that just shows you, so the decisions that are being made are not even being made by the representatives.
Right.
Young staffers are making these decisions because, in my estimation, these people are not really fit to lead us where we need to go, because they're set in their old ways of doing business. And as I say, I'm with the squad. Those is my people, Kazio and them. And here, I just did an interview with Ashley Bland Manlove and another rep from St. Louis last week. They both were members of the Black Congressional Caucus, and there's 2 more of them that couldn't make the Zoom, but they're getting ready to come on. I named they but the crew, because we need more people like them to be at the forefront of representing us and giving them the support of our network, because I just think our current leadership they're not as in touch with things that they should be. And I'm criticizing, but I'm not. The NAACP, the Urban League, and them, when all this stuff was going on with the marches and stuff, they didn't get involved until almost 3 weeks, almost a month after everything. And I don't think that when we're looking at ourselves for real in the mirror, I don't think that's what we want out of our representation when the world is on fire. We got to wait until you decide whether this is a good subject or a good cause to lend your banner to. How do you feel as a, not just as, I'm talking about as a Black person? Am I just talking rhetoric or am I making sense?
No, you're making sense. I don't think it's just rhetoric, but I'd like to believe that I'll offer a different way of seeing it. So, the Urban League and NAACP and organizations like that, they've been on the battlefield for a long time. So I don't want to overlook the things they've done throughout history. But I also want to call to our attention that fighting for the cause or being a part of the revolution is more than just taking to the street. I love the fact that our young people are taking to the street and protesting. But they could be protesting. There are other forms of protest in my mind. I've grown to learn and understand that there are other forms of protesting. And so a big part of my job now, even at a place like a William Jewell College as Vice President of Access and Engagement, or the Chief Diversity Officer, if you will, is my protest is in writing new policy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's my protest. I don't necessarily have to take to the street, but I enjoy the fact that our young people took to the street and protest. But my protest can be protesting in the way I design a building. In fact, me and Stephen, my wife, have been consulting with some organizations, some architectural organizations. They're talking about protest, design as protest, how to build our buildings, how to design our buildings as a form of protest. So I think it's a beautiful thing, how to equity in design, how to make our buildings more equitable for more people. You know what I mean? So
well, I understand all that. I've got this week coming on my guy Michael Toombs,
yes,
who basically was the creator of these street paintings, and right. I have all of the artists coming on, showing how to get our community involved and revved up in some public projects and what have you. I understand that. And let me say this about the Urban League. And I'm not throwing them down the tubes. And that's the problem that I think you said they've been fighting the battle a long time. And all I keep saying is that some more younger people need to be at the forefront that are very intelligent, and some of the old guard needs to be taken an emeritus position and giving them good sage advice on what. But I they can hate me if they want. I just think that people are comfortable. We're living in a economic-driven society, materialistic society, and those checks at the top for the CEOs and what have you, they, wish I can get one just for 1 week, last me the year. So I'm saying I got to speak to the power, and I think that I don't have no axe to grind, right, or any of that, and that's how they. From how I look, people like Nelson got an axe to grind. Nelson ain't got no damn axe to grind with nobody. Don't got no time for that. Right. But I do have time for speaking what I see. All of us are living in our own bubble of truth.
Very true.
And what is being fed to your bubble might not be fed to my bubble. But what I do feel is that we have to come together and we got to get off that personality thing. I don't like this one because what he said, personality. What we got to do is say, I might not like his, but they have something to offer, and that's going to take our community to that next level.
Well, I think you're at a position to say some things that I can't say because
I don't expect you to.
You've been on the battlefield a longer time than me. but I would never disrespect the work of your generation and the things I know you do. Because I know you personally, and I know that you're good friends with John Carlos. You know what I mean? One of the guys who held his hand up in a fist in the
Right.
in the Olympics of '68 Olympics,
Right.
in Mexico City. So, and I'll never overlook the work that I know that your generation has done to get us to where we've gotten to this day. My father marched with Martin. My father, who's let's see, my dad will be 80 his next birthday. You
He
know,
done seen a lot in his lifetime, especially living down south.
Yeah, he marched with Martin in 1963. But check this out, he was also on the Edmund Pettus Bridge on Bloody Sunday as military personnel. You know, so, and you know, my dad is an all-American guy. He also was in fought in the Army. You know what I mean? So I think about all the work that, again, people my dad did, and so I'll never overlook the work of the NAACP and
Urban
Urban League.
League.
Yeah,
And SCLC. I'm saying,
SCLC.
I think,
But I
listen,
understand your point that they took us so far, and it's time for young people.
And it's not just they took us. I always go back to this media that, see, my generation, and you might admire my generation, but I feel my generation was the generation that let everything go to hell, because my generation, most of us went to HBCU schools. I'm 69. I'm saying you didn't really go to the big schools, because when I came out, I had scholarships to Syracuse, Brown, and a couple other. Of course, I'm on the East Coast, but they had black student unions, and you really wasn't feeling comfortable on none of them daggone campuses. And my coach just straight out told me, you won't last a minute. Get your butt down to Virginia State and Petersburg. And I know I wouldn't have lasted a minute academically, because my first semester down at Petersburg, I had an 0.7 grade point average. Show you what they was teaching up there in New York in the public schools. They give 3 different types of degrees. You could get an academic, that's 4 years of the math, English, language. You get a commercial, typing, bookkeeping, and that type thing, and you get what I got, the general diploma. Shop, gym, and sprinkle a little something else on it. By the way, Luther Vandross was my classmate in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he was just like me. We was always in the basement in the shop area, because they had the music area in the basement also. But the bottom line is, my generation was the first real generation en masse to migrate into corporate America, because my generation was able to go get these diplomas, and then the real ambitious ones, they went and got that master's, because that was the thing 40 years ago. Then the real ones, they went and got that doctorate, and then they were able to get these superintendent jobs and these different things. But the key was you had to be able to assimilate. But with that assimilation came, a lot of them took on the values of the majority community. And those values is the dollar. And so therefore, once you take that dollar as your God, now you cannot really serve your community to the fullest extent, because you want to keep your job. And they have blacks where we won't even defend ourselves, no matter what job you're on. The trash man, you say too much about something, you might not have a job, and you can't take care of your kids. So how can you, it's a dichotomy. How can you be out on the firing line and maintain your economics? And so where I be pissed off, because I've been out on the firing line right out front, calling a spade, and then my community don't even back us up economically by coming to our networks, by supporting us who supports our sports, all of the arts, and politics and what have you. So that tells me the frame of mind that most of my would-be intellectuals are in. They're thinking, you know, the way the people have designed them to think. You want to keep this out here? You want to keep your family out here? You're in this position because we let you be in this position. And if you get too radical, like they did my boy out there in Lee Summit, you want diversity? We're going to diverse your butt out the superintendent's job. Or am I wrong?
Carlos,
you just too much. Am I wrong?
Yeah, my brother Carpenter took a stance, and you know, he took a stance.
That's the whole point. I've been taking a stance for 12 years.
Yeah.
And guys take a stance once in their life and get the knocked out of them, then it's a big deal. But you ain't looking at the brothers that's been out here taking a stance, not having the income, not having some of the accoutrements. You only got one damn life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, man, that like you said earlier, man, about that's somebody that some people's cross to bear. And that, you know, and I appreciate brothers like yourself that wasn't chasing and after the almighty dollar. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of us fall prey to that, man, unfortunately.
Well, you got a family. No, see, this is where I be at. We all got to do what we got to do. Stay the hell in line. I don't have to a certain degree, because I was married 30 years. My kids are grown. They had everything. They got everything now, right? So they can't hurt me. The establishment, they can take my life. I don't understand Black middle class and upper middle class that are retired. Yeah. That have income. Yeah. That won't get on the front line for real. Yeah. That's and having this conversation and putting that out there, what I'm always saying, whoever's looking at this, and you got people that are going to look at this video because you're in it, take a double take, look in the mirror and reset your morals and your standards, because your kids and your grandkids are going to be in a big heap of trouble in the next 4 or 5 years if we don't do something to come together. And you can't come together unless you can have a common meeting place that you can receive information and give information so that you can make better business decisions, health decisions, and decisions overall.
No, you're right. I think we have to take a stance on something, and we can't let the dollar be the thing that we compromise ourselves and our community on. Because again, I started the conversation talking about our children will be what they see. And so if they see us, you know, folding for the almighty dollar, I understand that we have to live. And, you know, money is how we, you know, live and support ourselves and how we eat. But we can't like make money be our focal point. You know what I mean? You know, I used to, and I'll say this, and I think this will be my last point. Right. You know, I'm starting to recognize and realize that the opposite of poverty is not wealth. You know what I mean? The opposite of poverty is justice. You know what I mean? And to your point, if you have
justice, you're not gonna have no poverty.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right, Los.
Justice won't allow it.
Justice won't allow it. Justice will not allow poverty to exist. And so a lot of times people get so focused on making wealth, but I think that justice is what we should be after. Because in a lot of cases, injustice is what created the poverty that we see. You know what I mean? And especially here in Kansas City, we talk a lot about redlining, but we never talk about greenlining. Because we got to talk about the whole map. We just talk about the one section of the map that was redlined, but there were other sections of the map that was greenlined, that banks were encouraged to invest in, that the people were considered desirable residents in those communities.
Could that be the difference, Rodney? I'm looking at the clock. I want you to give some parting words, and I
Yeah.
want to bring you back on in a week because I think we have a lot to discuss.
Yes.
And I would like, while we're on air, bring another professor or someone that you think has our community where we can have three of us discussing some real pertinent issues that are affecting our community. What would your parting words for this segment be under, this is going under our urban professional on What's Up Kansas City and education. So what would you have to say in closing?
Well, naturally, man, as an educator, as an academician, as someone from the academy, if you will, I would often say and always say, get educated, but don't let school get in the way. Because a lot of times we're allowing school to educate us, and school has been indoctrinating us, not educating us. So it's a lot of times, to your point, you know, we have to go outside of school in order to get educated. Don't let just what the history books taught you in school teach you your history, because the real history is found outside of those books and outside of those conversations. And talk to older people who lived through it. Interview your old family members and, you know, things like that. So get educated, but don't let school get in the way.
All right. I'm going to say this to all of my Black family. I encourage you that they have Zoom now, for you to set up Zoom family meetings like I do with my family once a week. And from I had my great grand on who was going into kindergarten this week, and had one of my grands on that was going into pre-kindergarten on the family Zoom, and they telling each other what the first day of school is like, and the parents get on. And I think we as Black people, we all have basically smartphones. It doesn't cost anything to load Zoom up. It's something that can bring you much closer to your family. And if all of us are doing this, when we're getting ready to make a move as a people, as a community, we can be more informed. If we know that we want to vote this way or that way, all the Black families are on their Zoom saying, this is the subject, this is what we're going to do, and get on board. That makes us much more powerful and gives us much more, will give us much more, many more seats at the table than we presently have. And as I always say in closing, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
This program is brought to you by Dielectric LLC, Energy in Motion.